NFL fans, brace yourselves. Today we're diving into the worst moments in football history, the kind that makes you hide your jersey or hang your head in shame. Every NFL team has had its low point, but some are worse than others. Think you know our number one? You'd still be wrong. So if you're ready to relive the pain, let's break down the ugliest moments, one team at a time. The 1986 Packers were an absolute mess. They ranked 23rd in scoring offense and 24th in scoring defense in a league with just 28 teams. So basically, they were bad at everything. Quarterback Randy Wright threw more interceptions, 15, than touchdowns, 13, while the defense gave up 30-plus points 6 times. Their 4 wins against teams with losing records. The season ended with a 55-24 beatdown from the Jets, making the Lombardi glory days feel like ancient history. But hey, at least they weren't totally winless. Before the Steel Curtain dynasty, there was this. The 1969 Steelers finished 1-13, scoring just 9.5 points per game, dead last in the league, and allowing over 25 points per game. Their lone win? A 16-13 battle against the equally awful 1-13 Bears. Rookie quarterback Terry Hanratty started 5 games and threw just 1 touchdown all season. The silver lining? This disaster earned Pittsburgh the number 1 pick in 1970, which they used to draft Terry Bradshaw. At least they got a future Hall of Famer out of the deal. The 2012 Chiefs weren't just bad. They set a new standard for futility. They finished dead last in scoring offense and turned the ball over 37 times, the most in the NFL. Quarterback Matt Castle threw 12 touchdowns and 19 interceptions, and they lost 9 games by double digits. Their worst moment? A 15-0 loss to the Raiders, where they managed just 119 yards of total offense. The misery ended with head coach Romeo Crennel getting fired after just 1 full season. Thankfully, Andy Reid would soon arrive to clean up this mess. The 2004 49ers looked more like a practice squad than an NFL team. After losing stars like Terrell Owens and Jeff Garcia in the offseason, they limped to a 2-14 finish. Their offense ranked 30th in scoring, 16.2 points per game, while their defense gave up an NFL-worst 452 points. Quarterback Tim Rattay led the way with 9 touchdown passes. Yes, 9. All season. To make matters worse, they closed the year with a 41-7 thrashing by the Patriots. For a franchise that had dominated in the 80s and 90s, this was their lowest point in decades. When Peyton Manning went down with a neck injury in 2011, the Colts went from Super Bowl contenders to, well, this. Curtis Painter and Dan Orlovsky combined for just 14 touchdown passes in a season where Indianapolis ranked dead last in scoring offense. They started 0-13 before eking out 2 wins. The silver lining? Their meltdown paved the way to draft Andrew Luck, making the suck for luck era worth the pain. Sort of. The Broncos entered 2022 with mile-high expectations after trading for Russell Wilson. What they got instead was a comedy of errors. Wilson threw for just 16 touchdowns all season while taking a league-high 55 sacks. Their Grinch moment came on Christmas Day when the Rams obliterated them 51-14, and backup QB Brett Rippon got into a sideline spat with his offensive line. The debacle led to the firing of rookie head coach Nathaniel Hackett after just 15 games. Broncos country? Let's cry. In 2009, the Rams redefined what it meant to hit rock bottom. Their lone win of the season came against the Lions, who we'll talk about later. Spoiler, they were even worse. Rookie QB Keith Null started 4 games, threw 3 touchdowns and 7 interceptions, earning a passer rating of 49.9. The team ranked dead last in scoring offense, 10.9 points per game, and gave up the second most points in the league. To top it off, their reward for this disaster was drafting Sam Bradford, a quarterback who made sure the misery kept rolling. By 2003, the Cardinals had cemented their reputation as the NFL's version of a filler episode. Their offense ranked 29th in scoring, their defense 30th, and the team routinely got blown out in front of nearly empty stands in the desert. The most humiliating moment? A 52-7 demolition by the Seahawks, where quarterback Jeff Blake threw 3 interceptions and was sacked 5 times. As for head coach Dave McGinnis, he didn't even survive the season, getting fired before the final whistle of Week 17. The 1992 Seahawks made NFL history by scoring just 140 points all season, the fewest ever in a 16-game schedule. Quarterback Sam Gelbaugh started 11 games and somehow managed just 1 touchdown pass. The offensive line gave up 54 sacks, and the run game limped to 3.4 yards per carry. Defensively, they weren't awful, but it didn't matter when their offense was practically non-existent. Their most soul-crushing moment? A 31-0 shutout loss to Denver, a game that perfectly encapsulated their lifeless season. The 2000 Vikings made it all the way to the NFC Championship, only to get obliterated 41-0 by the New York Giants in one of the most lopsided playoff losses in NFL history. Quarterback Dante Culpepper threw 3 interceptions, while the defense let Giants QB Kerry Collins play like Joe Montana, tossing 5 touchdown passes. Hope? There was none. The Vikings were down 34-0 by halftime. For a franchise infamous for playoff heartbreak, this wasn't just another gut punch. It was a public execution. The Giants' 2017 playoff hopes sank faster than their receivers did on that Miami yacht. Days before their wild-card matchup against the Packers, Odell Beckham Jr. and company were photographed partying shirtless on a boat. The result? A disaster. OBJ dropped multiple passes, including a crucial would-be touchdown, and the Giants were humiliated 38-13. The infamous boat picture became the meme of the year, and New York spiraled to a 3-13 record the following season. Lesson learned: boats and playoff wins don't mix. Now, if you like chaos, the 2014 Bears delivered in spades. Jay Cutler led the league with 18 interceptions while the offense sputtered, and the defense completely collapsed, giving up 50-plus points in back-to-back games against the Patriots and the Packers. Head coach Mark Trestman lost the locker room so badly that players were reportedly calling out plays to the media. By season's end, Trestman and GM Phil Emery were both fired, leaving Bears fans wondering how it all went so wrong so fast. Nothing says, "We're done here," like benching your starting quarterback mid-game in favor of Nate Sudfeld. In Week 17 of 2020, the Eagles were down just 3 points to Washington when head coach Doug Peterson made the baffling call to pull Jalen Hurts. Sudfeld entered the game and immediately looked like he'd been traded mid-game, fumbling, throwing a pick, and playing as if he'd forgotten which team he was on. The loss handed Washington the division and enraged Giants fans who missed the playoffs because of it. The backlash cost Peterson his job, proving that tanking isn't just ugly, it's career-ending. When you think of franchise failures, losing seasons or bad draft picks might come to mind. For Washington, it was their actual stadium falling apart. After a January 2022 game against the Eagles, a railing at FedEx Field gave way as Jalen Hurts walked off, sending fans tumbling dangerously close to the quarterback. No one was seriously injured, but the incident was a perfect metaphor for the Dan Snyder era, a franchise crumbling in every sense of the word. Urban Meyer's brief stint as Jaguars head coach was a circus from start to finish. From skipping a team trip to party with someone not his wife, to reportedly kicking a kicker during practice, Meyer turned the team into the league's biggest punchline. The most embarrassing game came in Week 14, a 20-0 loss to the Titans, where Trevor Lawrence looked overwhelmed, and the offense didn't even cross midfield until the second half. Meyer was fired after just 13 games, and fans staged a clown-out protest to drive the point home. The Texans seemed ready to finally break through in 2019. Up 24-0 against the Chiefs in the divisional round, they were poised for a statement win. Until Patrick Mahomes happened. Kansas City roared back with 41 unanswered points en route to a 51-31 win, leaving Houston stunned. The defense fell apart, and Bill O'Brien's coaching decisions went from questionable to laughable. This meltdown marked the start of the Texans' downward spiral, leading to a roster teardown and eventually the Deshaun Watson saga. But that's for another video. The 2001 Carolina Panthers were a total train wreck. They kicked off the season with a Week 1 win, then promptly lost 15 straight games in a row. Rookie quarterback Chris Weinke threw 11 touchdowns and 19 interceptions, and the defense gave up a franchise-worst 450 points. Head coach George Seifert, once a two-time Super Bowl champion with the 49ers, didn't survive the season and was fired shortly after it ended. This remains the worst record in franchise history, setting the tone for years of mediocrity. It's one thing to have a bad season. It's another to flirt with NFL infamy. The 2007 Dolphins came dangerously close to a winless season, starting 0-13 before squeaking out a 22-16 overtime win against the Ravens. Cleo Lemon's lone touchdown pass to Greg Camarillo in that game was the season's highlight. Yes, a single touchdown. Miami ranked 26th in offense and 30th in defense, allowing a staggering 437 points. For perspective, that's more than 3 touchdowns per game. It was misery on all fronts. But hey, at least they avoided a Lions-level disaster. Drafting Ryan Leaf second overall in 1998 wasn't just a mistake, it was an all-time disaster. While Peyton Manning thrived as the first pick, Leaf threw 2 touchdowns and 15 interceptions as a rookie, finishing with a 39.0 passer rating. Off the field, he was even worse, famously clashing with teammates and reporters in a now iconic meltdown. The Chargers went 5-11 his rookie season and cut him after just 2 years, cementing Leaf as one of the biggest busts in NFL history and leaving the franchise in shambles. When the Raiders drafted Jamarcus Russell first overall in 2007, they thought they were getting a franchise quarterback. Instead, they got a cautionary tale. Russell's infamous work ethic, or complete lack of it, became a running joke. Case in point, coaches once gave him a blank tape to study, and he pretended he had watched it. On the field, things weren't any better. Russell threw 23 interceptions to just 18 touchdowns and ended his career with a 65.2 passer rating. The Raiders went 5-11 in each of his 3 seasons, solidifying Russell as one of the worst draft picks in NFL history. The 2014 Titans were about as intimidating as toddlers armed with foam bats. Quarterbacks Zach Mettenberger and Jake Locker combined for 6 wins over 2 seasons, and the offense crawled to just 15.9 points per game, 30th in the league. The defense wasn't much better, giving up 438 points. The season's defining moment of futility came in Week 17 when they fell 27-10 to a Colts team that barely broke a sweat in the second half. Their reward for this disaster? Drafting Marcus Mariota with the number 2 pick, a decision so lackluster it nearly earned the Titans another spot on this list. The 1980 Saints weren't just bad, they were embarrassing, enough to inspire a movement. Fans started showing up to the Superdome with paper bags over their heads, and the infamous Aints nickname was born. Their only win came in Week 15, a 21-20 nail-biter against the equally dreadful Jets. Archie Manning spent the season running for his life behind an offensive line that surrendered 43 sacks, while the defense gave up a league-worst 487 points. It wasn't just failure. It was failure with flair, cementing the Saints as the NFL's lovable losers. The 2007 Ravens thought they already hit their low point during an 8-game losing streak until they faced the 0-13 Dolphins. Baltimore managed to lose 22-16 in overtime, handing Miami their only win of the season. Quarterback Kyle Bowler threw 2 interceptions, and the Ravens' defense, led by Ray Lewis, somehow allowed 224 passing yards to Cleo Lemon. Yeah, Cleo Lemon! The embarrassment led to the firing of head coach Brian Billick and left Ravens fans wondering how a team with this much talent could look so hopeless. The Bengals hit rock bottom and kept digging. Leading 16-15 with under 2 minutes left, they had a golden chance to win their first playoff game since 1990. Instead, they imploded in spectacular fashion. A fumble by Jeremy Hill gave Pittsburgh life, but the real disaster came with back-to-back personal fouls from Vontaze Burfict and Adam Pac-Man Jones, gifting the Steelers a chip shot field goal to win 18-16. This game became the defining moment of Cincinnati's playoff misery, as the Bengals wouldn't make it back to the postseason until 2021. Before the Patriots became the NFL's gold standard, they were the league's punchline. In 1990, New England limped to a 1-15 record, scoring 181 points while giving up 446. Quarterback Mark Wilson threw more interceptions, 15, than touchdowns, 7, and their lone win came in Week 2 against the Colts, a game so forgettable even Colts fans probably erased it from memory. Attendance at home games was so sparse that Foxborough Stadium looked like a public practice. It's almost impossible to believe this sad excuse for a team would turn into a dynasty just a decade later. There's bad, and then there's legendary bad. On Thanksgiving 2012, Jets quarterback Mark Sanchez gave the world an unforgettable moment when he ran face-first into his lineman's backside and fumbled the ball. The Patriots happily scooped it up for a defensive touchdown. Dubbed the butt fumble, the play came during a humiliating 49-19 loss in a season where the Jets went 6-2 and had a league-worst -14 turnover differential. Adding insult to injury, the clip lived on ESPN's Not Top 10 countdown for an incredible 40 straight weeks. Calling the Lions' 2008 season a disaster feels almost too kind. Detroit became the first team in NFL history to go 0-16, with quarterbacks Dan Orlovsky, John Kitna, and Dante Culpepper combining for just 19 touchdowns and 19 interceptions. The defense? A complete mess, allowing 517 points, the most in the league. And who could forget Orlovsky's infamous safety, where he cluelessly ran out of the back of the end zone? That play summed up a season so bad the Lions didn't just crash. They left a crater big enough to wipe out the dinosaurs. Honestly, putting this at number 6 might be too generous. The Browns perfected the art of losing during their winless 2017 campaign, becoming just the second team in NFL history to finish 0-16. Quarterback DeShone Kizer led the league with 22 interceptions and finished with a passer rating of 60.5. Cleveland's offense averaged a paltry 14.6 points per game, while the defense ranked dead last in turnover differential, -28. Their closest shot at a win, a 27-21 overtime loss to the Packers, where Corey Coleman dropped a wide-open pass on 4th down. It was as if the Browns were trying to out-lion the Lions, and somehow succeeded. For a team known as America's team, 1989 felt like America was rooting for literally anyone else. After Jerry Jones bought the Cowboys and controversially fired legendary coach Tom Landry, Dallas spiraled to a 1-15 record in Jimmy Johnson's first year as head coach. Rookie quarterback Troy Aikman went winless in 11 starts, throwing just 9 touchdowns to 18 interceptions, while the defense gave up 393 points, the second most in the NFC. The lowlight? A 28-0 shutout loss to the Eagles in Week 7. The silver lining? That number 1 pick turned into Emmitt Smith. But in the moment, the pain of 1989 was unforgettable. The Buccaneers' NFL debut in 1976 wasn't just bad, it was a masterclass in failure. They went winless, got shut out 5 times, and scored only 125 points all season, an average of just under 9 points per game. Steve Spurrier, yes, that's Steve Spurrier, played quarterback and somehow threw more interceptions, 12, than touchdowns, 7. The cherry on top? Head coach John McKay's legendary sarcasm. We didn't block very well today, but we made up for it by not tackling. Brutal honesty for a team that set the standard for ineptness. Buffalo's 17-year playoff drought wasn't just long, it was excruciating. Over nearly 2 decades, the Bills cycled through 10 head coaches, 17 starting quarterbacks, and a laundry list of gut-wrenching losses. Highlights? Well, lowlights included the infamous Monday Night Meltdown in 2007, when they blew an 11-point lead in the final 20 seconds to Dallas, and a humiliating 56-10 loss to the Patriots that same season. The drought finally ended in 2017, and the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow came in 2018. Josh Allen, the quarterback who restored hope to Bills Mafia. Is anyone surprised this made number 1? The Falcons' implosion in Super Bowl 51 against the Patriots wasn't just bad, it was legendary. Up 28-3 late in the third quarter, Atlanta looked destined to win their first Super Bowl. Instead, poor clock management, a disastrous sack, and a gassed defense opened the door for Tom Brady and the Pats to pull off a 34-28 overtime win. At one point, the Falcons had a 99.7% chance of victory. The disaster didn't just crush Falcons fans. It left an entire nation of Patriot haters screaming into their pillows. Every NFL team has been there, rock bottom. Whether it's winless seasons, humiliating losses, or organizational chaos, these moments remind us that football is a game of highs and lows. But as painful as they are, rock bottom is where hope begins, and every fan knows there's always next season.